All right, and we are live. Welcome back to That Mystery Show. And today I have Anna Sarah, who is returning and visits me a lot. Welcome, Anna Sarah.
Yep.
And Chris, hopefully, is coming shortly. Um, he seems to be MIA at the moment. So the last time we got together, we talked about the first book of Enoch.
Right.
And I guess and I asked you a little bit about yourself, like your spirituality. And so I'm gonna share with everybody again um our spirituality. First I'll tell you mine is I'm omnist, and what that means is of all the paths that I've followed, I've found truth in all of them, but not one as the truth. It's like every time I studied something and um, I resonated with it, I would still, I'd read something else and I'd resonate with that. And because I try not to judge someone else's beliefs, I found myself leaning towards omnism and respecting that every religion is or spiritual belief is there's going to be a truth in it. So I now call myself omnist, and I feel very, very good about that. It allows me to respect Christianity. It allows me to respect Luciferians. It allows me to respect Buddhist. So tell me about your spirituality, Anna Sarah.
Um, for many years, I was all over the place. Because, the more you read, the more you talk to people, your opinions and your beliefs kind of change a little bit. It's never like changed drastically, but it's
Right.
always changed a little bit over the years.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of funny that I still consider myself Christian, but like you said, in other religions, they may say like God in a different name, but what they believe that God does is the same in Christianity. So it's like you said, it's all very similar, just with different names and different ways to pray. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I agree with that
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. Um, I can't speak for Chris, but I think he's a lot like you are, Anna
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
So when he comes on, I will definitely let him speak for himself. And I love that. I love that because I think that being progressive in your beliefs is what life is about, because as we go through life, we're going to experience, you know, and every good or bad experience, if it's profound, it kind of changes us,
Yep.
and allowing ourselves to embrace our differences and the changes as they come, to me, is true growth. And so, yeah, allowing yourself to even contemplate what someone else believes or dive into it or whatever, is freedom, is true freedom. I love it.
Yep. I agree.
So the last time we got together talking about the book of Enoch, we did get a little off track and stuff. So just to summarize a little bit, um, you know, it's an apocryphal text, and by apocryphal, or like mainly that it just means that it was not included in like the Bible we know today.
Right.
And it's actually part of a bunch of different books that were kept out of the Bible. And because, again, they call them apocryphal, or I can't even say the word correctly, I don't think.
Actually, they were all technically first in the Bible, but the churches decided to take those out.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
See if if I'm saying this right. Pseudo epigraphical writings.
You
So that
would
it's
say
what
a
it's
lot better than me.
yeah, okay. So and it yeah, it just these are sometimes they've been expanded on. There's still question of like who wrote them, and
Right.
especially the book that we're going to talk about today is Enoch book 2. And I don't think there's any possible way that Enoch is the author of this book.
I would agree. And for my point of view, the reason why I don't think so is in the first book and the second book, it's the way the person is telling what's happening,
Uh-huh.
and the way this person explains things is different from the first book. And I'm like, "Oh, this doesn't really sound like Enoch or whoever was writing the first book. It sounds a little different." You can tell when it's two different authors for me.
Right. I think
So,
so. I think you're yeah, right on the money with that. And I think that book 2 was actually found in the 19th century, and it's mainly in Slavonic translations.
mm,
So it's even different type of text.
right.
Um,
Who do you think wrote the second book?
well, I think they actually uh, in like different translations and people that have talked about the translations, it's comes back to a uh, not a monk, not a pastor. Oh shoot, a priest maybe. I think it was a priest.
Yeah.
So, and I think even at one point a priest, they found that a priest actually took credit for it, and I cannot remember. I should have done better research before this because I still think it's up in the air, but I remember reading that. Um,
Mm.
if anybody is listening to the playback on this and knows the answer, um,
Let us
share,
know.
yeah, share it in the comments. And then actually, I will look that up since we did address it and share it in the comments what I found too, or in the description. But
I wonder if one of his sons knew all of this and went to like some kind of priest or prophet or whatever and said like, look, I need help writing this. This is what my father told me. And maybe they both kind of like wrote it down.
yeah, like we talked about in the last one, the whole like what do you call it, phonograph or whatever, where you say something and then someone else repeats it and a little bit
Yeah.
gets changed,
Yeah.
translates different. But yeah,
Broken telephone. Yeah.
it was passed down obviously through
Yeah.
generations. But I could see that. Yeah, they
Mhm.
kept it in the family, and somebody said, "Man, we need to write this down."
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Because like the first book kind of ends where he's going to heaven,
Yep.
right? And then the second book kind of starts. Well, I think they said that is actually like a continuation in Genesis, like it expands on Genesis 5. So um, it's it's still about creation, but he goes on in the second book to talk about the levels of heaven.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Chris, and Chris saying that he felt like those are dimensions or planes of existence.
Mm.
And I agree with that because I think that we are in a plane of existence here, and it is the physical realm.
Right.
So I think it's only natural that, if our conscious is consciousness is existing in all these different realms, then it is kind of a leveling up. Like you hear people say they are experiencing things in the five dimension, or the 5D, five density, sorry. Um, but then you have actual dimensions. So like if you're, I feel like your consciousness is existing in all of it at once, but you might only be perceiving maybe into the third and the fourth,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still anybody's guess because we haven't really proven it, even though hypothetically speaking, 20 years ago, actually 30 years ago, that was something that, uh, scientists had hypothesized that the 12th dimension was God. So they hypothetically at that time didn't want to prove that the 12th dimension exists because that's God. So, it's like a
Mhm.
leveling up of, that's where we become God or a part of God every time we ascend.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting about that, do you remember reading chapter 21? I don't know if you have your book open, but it's
I got it.
the one at the very end of that chapter. It talks about um, the zodiac and the 12 signs
Yes. Yeah.
in the ninth heaven.
Yep. Which is
And,
called, I can't even pronounce it in Hebrew. Kachavim? Kachuvim? Something like that.
I don't know. I got the actual thing here too. I'm going to look at it real quick.
Mm.
Um, oh, cherubim? No, those are the angels, cherubim and seraphim. Yeah, I'm looking
Then
at.
it says, and I saw the ninth heaven, which is called in Hebrew Kachavim, where are the heavenly homes of the 12 constellations of the circle of the firmament. That's the end of chapter 21.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and in the Hebrew language, it's Muzaloth or Muzaloth.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Yes, yes.
Yep, yep. The changer of seasons. And yeah, so they're talking about the 12 zodiacs, which are above the seventh heaven. And I saw the ninth heaven, which in the Hebrew, oh, okay, which in the Hebrew language is called Kukavim.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's what I said.
Yeah, we probably both butchered it, but yeah, where the
Yeah,
heavenly houses of the 12 zodiacs are. So,
yeah.
um, and I also remember listening in the first book of Enoch where he is describing a dream, I think, to Methuselah. And he's talking about the 12 lambs or the 12 sheep. But then he says there is a third or a 13th one.
Right.
And I believe he's definitely making reference to Jesus and his disciples. And when I think about the 12 zodiacs, I believe that the houses, the zodiac, the disciples, they're all the same thing. They're like a different level of learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like Manly P. Hall, who is like a well-known Mason, but before that, he's just, I'd say, a mystic. He was sharing knowledge about the planets and how to use them, like in an astrological sense, using the planets and the characteristics of each planet to upgrade your personality. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Using the those characteristics and turning all the shadow into light, and you use the planets to do so. Like Venus is about how we love each other. It's our generosity, it's our sensuality. So being the best in that is important. Mercury is the way we think. It's all about our thought process. It's also about how we take care of our bodies, healing. and how we take care of others.
Mm-hmm.
So, focusing on the planets is essential to our ascension.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this book, um, I think
It
is
gets very confusing.
it's
Like,
very
I got lost in, like, so many times, and I no matter how many times I reread it, I was just like, "I just don't get it." I'm like, "Okay, just move on to the next paragraph, or I'm gonna be here for 5 years." So,
yeah, yeah.
like,
I
on
can.
the 29th day of the 7th year, and I'm just like, "Whoa."
Well, you know what? I did a little research, and the Book of Enoch is very specific in,
Mm.
like it says, when I was 165 years old, I fathered my son Methuselah, but in the Bible, he was 65. So
Huh.
there's, yeah. So, I mean, that alone tells me, there's, uh, interpretation is important because it's going to change.
Yeah,
So I mean, if that right there can change, I think that that says that, you know whatever you're reading into it, the takeaway is not so detailed as much as the message is important. You know what I mean? So
right.
it's whatever you're feeling, it's whatever you're getting. And for me, Enoch is just extremely, um he's very strict with himself, and he's very, I don't know, he's, it's like there's no room to get away with anything.
Yeah,
Don't you kind of feel that when you're listening to him, you know
yeah,
kind
he's very
of,
precise.
yeah.
Yeah,
and and I feel like that is, I feel that way when I read, scripture from the Old Testament.
yep,
So the vibe is the same as what I get from the Old Testament.
yeah,
The differences are, in my opinion, is that he expands upon, you know, um, the levels of heaven. So he expands upon the, oh, he just sent me a message. Oh, okay. Chris says he's not going to be able to participate.
okay, whatever.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to tell
You're
him
forgiven,
no
Chris.
worries. Yeah. Let me say that. No worries, and you are forgiven.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
uh,
I was thinking, like, when I was finishing the second book, just sat there contemplating everything I just read, what I've, like, understood. Um, could you, like, if you put yourself in Enoch's shoes and you seeing each of the level of the different heavens, like, that's gotta be terrifying because not all of it was all, like, beautiful. Some of it was, like, very scary. Like, I
yeah.
think it was the 3rd heaven,
Uh-huh.
um, where is it? Da, da, da. He said, "This is a terrible place," and the men who brought them there said, Um, "This is prepared for those who dishonor God, who on earth practice sin against nature, which is sodomy of a child, corruption of children, performing magic, yada yada yada." And where does it say? Where is it? Oh my gosh, it was like, where did he say? Uh, oh yeah, there were every kind of tortures in that place, cruel darkness and gloom, and there was absolutely no light at all there, but murky fire constantly flaming above, and there was a fiery river coming out. And everywhere in that entire place is fire, and everywhere there is frost and ice, thirst and shivering, while the physical restraints are very cruel, and the spirits were fearsome and merciless, bearing angry weapons, torturing without mercy. I was like, if you were seeing that, I would be like shitting my pants.
Is that is you said that was from the third heaven?
Yeah, that's the third heaven.
Huh.
And those are for the places where those the people who were like totally against God and practiced sin over and over again and murder and all that stuff. I'm
Okay. Oh,
dying.
okay.
Yeah.
Here they showed Enoch the frightful place and various tortures. To the northern region, they showed me a very frightful place because okay, it starts off with the third heaven being paradise, and that the place is inconceivably pleasant. So they're showing him, this is the beginning. Oh, hi, Lady Blind Wolf. Nice to see you. Um, no worries, we're all late today. um, and so he's showing them all this paradise, and then he says they go on to tell them, um, where does he say? Hi, how very pleasant is this place, and those meant to be the revelation to Enoch of the place and those who are righteous and kind. Wordy. This place Enoch has been prepared for righteousness. Okay, who suffer every so this is for the people that have been suffering. This is their paradise. And
Yeah.
then even for them, this place has been prepared as an eternal inheritance. Then they showed Enoch the frightful place and the various tortures. So this is where they came from. And what you just described to me and what I think of is here.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the only light in the world besides our sun is us.
Yeah.
So you have the sun and you have us, because think about, and if this is like, this is another third dimension, this is the third dimension, this is the physical plane. This is where all that shit happens. And so, I mean, as we move up, so let's go back and see what it says about the first.
Okay.
So when I had spoken to my sons, those med called me, and they took me onto their wings, carried me up to the first heaven, and placed me on the clouds. And behold, they were moving. So, okay, so we've got stars, and we have stellar old orders, and there's no real, I feel like this is consciousness. So like the first heaven is your consciousness. It's like you open your eyes and you are aware of something. You're aware you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go on to the second heaven, and they showed me, and I saw darkness greater than an earthly darkness. And there I perceived prisoners under guard, hanging up, waiting for the measureless judgment.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, and those angels have the appearance of darkness itself. So this is,
That's trippy.
yeah, it is. These are people that, so supposedly these are the people that turned away from the Lord and did not obey their commandments.
Right. Yeah.
So this, I believe, this is where we find free will. So you have your conscious, and then all of a sudden you have free will. So now you have the ability to make a choice.
Mm.
And so free will, then you become flesh, your flesh, you have free will. Again, the third heaven is still, because of these things that you're experiencing, then possibly you have the, it's almost like duality, like as humans, we have a dual nature. So it's kind of a perception of, are we seeing paradise or are we lost in our darkness? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
It's it's just one way to look at it, because I honestly don't, I can't tell you what it means. And I know there's a lot of symbology,
Right.
in the book of Enoch. And I remember reading that in the book that you have, that, where they talk about the white buffalo means it like Adam, and then it's
Oh yeah.
Abraham, and so I mean they're talking about different generations there, but each one is led by the white buffalo. And what's interesting about that, even the Mormons believe that Jesus was a white buffalo. Um,
Hmm.
so the symbology is something that they've been using, you know, to represent this line of Christ. The chosen, or whatever you want to call it,
Uh-huh.
that began with Adam, God's chosen. Maybe it means Israel. No, Israel are the sheep, I think. But anyway, they use the symbolism to describe Enoch's dreams and what they actually meant. Um, so some of the stuff that they talk about in these heavens, they're using symbolism, and without knowing specifically what he is referring to with the symbolism, it's really hard to interpret.
Yeah.
So you can't
Like
really
if
read.
they what like why would they do that in the first place? Like if God or Jesus wants us to understand everything, like it should be like straightforward explanation, not like hidden meanings or symbology, or because it gets so confusing and then other people interpret differently. So how do we get the right information?
I don't know, but
Like it's crazy.
I think that because Enoch had dreams, he was a
Yeah.
prophet that God gave him dreams, and the dreams
Was he
held
like considered the
symbolism.
seer?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I mean, he would have the dreams, and so he understood the symbology, and that's how the subconscious works.
Right.
It uses your limited vocabulary to communicate with you. And
So half of you understands it, but the other half doesn't.
right, right. I mean,
Yeah.
without really meditating on what does this mean,
Yeah.
like when you have a dream that you're inside a house, usually the house is you.
Hmm.
So I know that dreams are full of symbology, so I believe that he used that on purpose, because later generations reading this are going to understand symbols before they're going to understand the language of that time.
Right.
So that's the only thing that I can think of why that would be. But I'm not really putting so much emphasis on Enoch's message anyway. That's just me personally, because again,
Hmm.
I feel like it's just as strict and unforgiving as the Old Testament. And the Old Testament uh, wants you to worship uh, a flesh god, a god that the god of this physical world. And I believe that even if you read through these heavens, that it's pretty. I don't know if it's in the third book or not, but it's very apparent to me that these angels or deities that are kings of these realms, um, one of them is the god of the fleshly world. And so that tells me that the highest plane is ruled by the God that is not spoken of in the Old Testament. See, I believe that that's like the Gnostics believe that the God of the Old Testament is the demiurge. I mean, he's just, there's so much stuff that's talked about in the Old Testament that is just sounds horrific to me, in
Yeah.
how to treat your enemies, that I feel like Jesus would have cried and said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, that the God from the Old Testament is not the same God that, is eternal, the God that
Mhm.
doesn't really have a name. I just think that I could get really deep and say that I think that that God is the one that he is the deceiver. And the reason I say that is because he has been able to make people believe that he is that all powerful God because his ego cannot withstand anyone else worshiping anything other than him as the all powerful. It's almost like the wizard in the Land of Oz.
Mm.
You see how imperfect he is behind the screen, but yet unless you truly know and do the research or whatever, you're not going to know that he's a big false prophet. But
Mm.
that now, like Jesus's father, I don't I think that he's not the same father from the Old Testament.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just, I think that that's more of a Gnostic. I think I veer towards the Gnostic belief that the demiurge is the God from the Old Testament,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the God from the New Testament is Jesus's father, and he's us all together. He is our consciousness. He's the spirit. He's the beginning. He's the end. I can't really explain it, but I believe that, it's all of our spirit together. It's like he is the spirit that is the reason we're alive,
Yeah.
is the reason that we are able to remember things from other lifetimes. He's that, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that if everyone was, like connected to their spirit, if everyone was truly connected to their spirit, the spirit that has been here, with us through every lifetime, I think if we were all connected to that, then, like we would actually understand what God is. And I feel like that's the problem in my eyes and just my opinion of why it's so hard for people to agree on what God is because we get stuck in our own identity
Right.
instead of realizing that we are not our identity. Our identity is to learn who we are, but
Right. Yeah.
we can't get stuck there. You
Mhm.
know, remembering that we are the spirit and the spirit is God.
Yeah.
But I think Jesus, if he was able to say without somebody translating for him, would blow everybody's mind on who God is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally
But
agree.
so with what did you get out of this book? What did you leave? What did when you were done reading Enoch book 2, what did you feel from it? What did you get from it? What did you retain from
That there's so much more than we think or know, and, like, to the point where the most craziest things that you can think of, like, could exist. Like, it's not just, like, sci-fi movie, like, people would say, "Oh, I saw this creature and it came out of the sky and blah, blah, blah." People would be like, "Yeah, okay, that's a good movie," but the most craziest, insane, beautiful, scary things are not from this earth, and there's so much there that we need to be really open about because I believe, like, all these different levels of heavens, and a lot of people don't even know about that.
yeah.
And it's in these angels, and then there's in one of the I think it's in the 12th heaven where God remains, there's four different beasts, and one has like a face of a human, one has a face of an eagle,
Yeah.
and it's all like different creatures put into like one. So that's what's in heaven, and like that's real. And a lot of people just think it's just movie stuff, and it's not. It's like it just boggles my mind how there's so much more out there that we cannot comprehend.
So the book itself, if you were to summarize it, in my opinion, is his ascension through each of these levels of density
Right.
or planes or of existence.
Mhm.
And by mastering each plane of existence, even if you want to, like again, what I was talking about with the planets, the parts of our personality,
Yeah.
he became the angel Metatron.
Metatron. Yeah. Hmm.
So, and Metatron is God's right hand, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's like the summary of it. And in fact, I think that, a lot of like spiritual doctrines or maybe even some religious doctrines get very detailed about each level of ascension. So, I mean, and if we were to apply that to ourselves, it would maybe be almost like the tree of life where you go through the different paths on the tree. I think there's 32 paths.
Mhm.
So it takes you up to, the highest level of your existence, which is like the highest consciousness, like some people call it, you have your subconscious, you have your conscious, and then you have a super consciousness. And then you have like kind of like the oversoul, which is connected to God. It's like the direct message that you get from the source.
Mhm.
And the oversoul is what's experienced, and this is just one way of looking at it. I don't even know if I actually believe that anymore, but the fact that, like you said, he talks about all the mythical creatures.
Yeah.
And so I remember somebody telling me a long time ago that they believed that anything that you could think of, because we are creators,
Yep.
anything that you could think of exists in that fourth dimension. So it's actually anything that you can imagine. And if you think about that, if it's something, if you're imagining something scary, well, then when you close your eyes, for those
Yeah.
people that can actually, see what they imagine,
Mhm.
because not everybody can, um, that's the fourth dimension. So like the fifth dimension is moving beyond the emotions of the fourth dimension, where you experience the fear of what you're looking at, or like your nightmares and stuff like that. So if you're moving beyond that, then you're moving to the fifth dimension. And imagine you just keep getting higher, and you're outside of yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But I'm picturing everything while you're talking.
it's like maybe I need to start microdosing. Actually, I've been
I
thinking about
believe
it.
that though. Like, yeah, pretty I think everything exists.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yep. I do too. I do too. Even like reading the Book of Enoch, and then I have actually had a friend who's been talking to me about demonology. You know, one of the other books I'd really like to expand upon is like the Key of Solomon, and the Key of Solomon does really dig into demonology, or you can use that to understand it. And when you have the power of a name, and so again, the true name of God. There isn't one.
Mhm.
It's a bunch of syllables, which is something that we gave it because there isn't one.
Yeah.
So there is a definite power in a name. And so when I think of like Solomon has these, actually, it was more than 72 angels standing before him, and he's pretty much telling them, you need to give me your name.
Yes.
And there were a few that actually refused.
Mhm. So because they didn't want to be controlled.
Yes, yes. So it's
Yeah.
like your true nature, if you are only looking at it through someone else's eyes instead of your own, that's like giving them your name. And if they use that label because you believe that's your name, right? And so
Mhm.
they're using that quote unquote label to control you because you are that name. Whereas if you withhold it, then that other person that thinks they control you don't know you, and you know they don't know you because you never gave them your name. It means that you don't buy into what someone else is trying to create a version of you that only exists in their mind, not yours.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the whole idea of demonology. There's a light and a dark side in each of us. And so, like, and I even feel like, Enoch is explaining this with symbology, the light and the dark. And in order to ascend, you have to find the balance in each of those planes. You know what I mean? You can't just, walk in and think that you're going to ascend to the next level. Each level
Right.
is like the game.
Yeah.
You have to win the game,
Mhm.
and then you level up.
Hmm.
And I love that it talks about the zodiac. Even though that's another thing, I watched it was a YouTube channel, I think called Archaics. Anyway, he had a whole episode on the zodiac, talking about it. He said the zodiac doesn't, it never even existed. So he said the word came way later than these translations are using that word. You know what I mean? It's like the word didn't even exist until after these texts had long been written. So when you see the word zodiac, it's was something that was added later. So to me, even though we're looking at the word zodiac in this, it kind of reiterates that these translations are more modern, they're more progressive,
Right.
because the zodiac is just a measurement.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Even the zodiac wheel itself it's just a measurement. It's a way to measure, what season it was by what constellation was in the sky,
Mhm. Mhm.
or what. I can't explain it correctly, I don't think, but it's a form of measurement. So they're really truly talking about the signs,
Right.
the astrological signs,
Mhm.
and each one has characteristics, again, which we already talked about that. But
Yeah.
so that's my takeaway, is just Enoch is confronting every um aspect of himself, and like winning each, he's leveling up,
Mhm.
and then at the end he becomes Metatron, so he literally just ascends.
Yeah.
And I feel like, honestly, this is probably an unpopular opinion, I feel like it is so strict and so like detailed to tell you, or the kind of like fear mongering, is so that not everybody ascends.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably, I feel like um true ascension is our conscious or our subconscious is going to do like it did for Enoch. It's going to send us dreams, it's going to give us messages. And if we listen, we will understand what our higher self wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's through meditation, it's through listening,
Right.
and not so much trying to find the truth in someone else's story as much as it is he's just given his testimony.
Mm-hmm.
you know um like I can tell you the reason I dug into these books in the first place was because, and I think I said this in the last one, is being a palm and a tarot reader. I for the longest time I thought there were so many things that were considered sinful or from a darker nature that was considered a sin or evil. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's nothing to back that up except for somebody said that that was the case. Even the word pharmakia, which is translated into witchcraft, pharmakia was the original thing that they said to stay away from. Pharmakia meant witchcraft and sorcery. Well, what does pharmakia mean to you?
I haven't even heard of that word.
Pharmaceutical. It's got the same base.
Ah,
Yes, what it's medicine, right?
right.
So
Huh.
if witchcraft is the true nature of witchcraft was medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But think about pharmaceutical. What does our pharmaceutical do? It's not anything about an
Well,
herbal remedy. It's
craft poison,
yeah, it's
pretty much
poison.
the opposite. Yeah.
That's the sorcery of it. That's the
Mm-hmm.
sorcery of it. They're taking what's supposed to heal and turning it into poison. That is what they meant by pharmakia, witchcraft. Not
Which some of women and men back in the day also did. So there was evil, there was some evil to it, but there was also some good to it,
yeah.
depending on who uses it for what.
And that's exactly it. To me, it means, do everything with intention to heal or to
To
with
help.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Hmm.
I
There's one thing slightly off topic, because I know we're getting short of time.
mhm,
Um, it said in the New Testament when Jesus heals like the blind, the people who never was able to walk, um, people like that. And it said in the Bible that Jesus took the demons out and they were cleansed. So if just think about that, about people today, people who can't walk, people who have like schizophrenia, or people who are blind,
mhm.
like, is it actual like a mental sickness that went wrong, or do they actually have demons in them? Because that's what it is in the Bible. He says the word demons. He took demons out of them.
It's interesting. I would want to see the actual, you know what I mean, text, and if it actually meant demon or shadow or
Yeah,
darkness,
I'll try to find it too. Yeah.
because demons mean, can mean many things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that anything that lives on that other dimension that is nothing but dark energy could be considered a demon.
Yep.
I
Yep.
believe we create demons by like when the energy inside of us is so destructive and we are just spreading dark energy, we're creating a demon. I don't know if you've ever, I know you have, you've
Mm-hmm.
been affected by elementals that are
Yep.
just, and they some things feed on dark energy and they just get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the thing of it is the dark side of us represents the demon in us.
Yep.
And so
And if
maybe
we stay in that place, we're easier to get attacked from other negative spirits or demons. and
Yep.
that's how Satan or devil, whatever, that's how he starts winning over
Yeah.
because of all of that.
And I think that it's just, maybe I don't know if ignorant would be the word to use, because ignorance just means the choice to not look into something, the choice to not even inform yourself. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
You are
mhm,
ignoring something that's right in front of you. I think that if you are totally um, conscious of the things and aware and honest with yourself, that there are dark forces. That
yep,
doesn't mean that we as humans are evil. I I think that we can have evil intent. But I
mhm,
do believe that there are things that live in interdimensional places, that aren't exactly can be seen on this plane,
mhm,
that are dark entities. And so, like, in fact, I was having this conversation with my daughter. Like, when you're in a state of sleep paralysis,
mhm,
I think that when you're in sleep paralysis, that means that you're astral traveling. You're going somewhere. That means that your body is left somewhere unattended.
yes,
So you're still tethered. But what if you haven't protected yourself, and something else that wants to experience this realm just kind of climbs into your body?
yep,
I
mhm,
think those things are possible. And that's why I think that, possessions can happen. And I don't, you would have to be very powerful to, make sure that, for one, if you did become possessed, in order to kick that energy or that entity out of your body, you would have to have a great power within yourself. You would have to be that confident.
mhm,
I think you can, but I think that maybe that's what some of these priests might be dealing with, is that, that might have happened. And so, like,
mhm,
maybe even like someone like Jesus understood what was happening, and he understood that, that person that left that body unattended is still tethered to that body. But since someone is, in that body, other than the person that was intended to be in that body, Jesus, I think, understood that and knew that he could get it out of there,
yeah,
because he understood the nature of what was in it.
mhm,
And that's why, they say these priests need to know the name. You
mhm,
know what I'm saying? And it's understanding the nature of the beast that is
yeah,
dwelling in there. So yeah, I mean, I think that it can happen. Absolutely.
mhm. Ugh, crazy
Yeah,
world.
I know, right?
Uh,
Yeah. So, I mean, you've had sleep paralysis before, haven't you?
I've I don't know if I left my body, I don't know, but I remember telling you that sometimes when I wake up, my body, like, shakes, like, it felt like I wasn't breathing, like, I woke up like this, right?
Yeah.
And not knowing why.
Hmm.
So, that's happened a few times, but, like, I've seen things when I wake up in the middle of the night, and if it's if it's scary, then I just pray. I just pray my heart out, and nothing's ever bad happened because I believe, like, I do believe in prayer. I do believe, you know, that God or Jesus is gonna help if we believe in them. If we don't believe in them and then prayer, then it's not gonna do anything.
Um, I do believe that. I think belief is what you believe in is what gives it power. And so, to me,
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
is absolutely, that's your greatest power. I
Mhm.
think, um, like Dolores Cannon talks about walk-ins, that, like,
Yep.
there's souls that will kind of take over for you, type thing. And
Mhm.
to me, that makes sense. It's just like a possession. It's like, you know, but it's a contract that you're making with someone else. Like your soul says, okay, I'm done with this, but this body still has stuff to do. And another one says, okay, I'm going to come in. I think that's entirely possible. And the reason I think it's entirely possible is because I think it happened to me. You know,
Hmm.
I actually was telling, I talked to my daughters about a lot of stuff, but I actually was talking about that too. I don't think it was a near death experience. I just think that, when I look back at my memories, some of my memories I will feel an emotion from because I am reliving the whole memory. And how can you, it's like watching a movie and not being affected by the movie when it's so emotional. Of course, you're going to be affected by it.
Hmm.
But my memories are still, there's a lot of times that I can go back and I'm not reliving the whole moment. I am watching it like a movie.
Yeah.
So, and I know that even my intentions, there's just a whole lot of things have changed since 10 years ago,
Yep. Yeah.
you know? And so I feel like that's something that very, very well could have happened. But the walk-in has all of your memories. The walk-in has, access to anything that ever was that's you.
Hmm.
So, and I just, it's one of those things that I didn't always think that. I just have been thinking it lately,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
So, but anyway, it's just one of those things that makes you go, But I think that that's also the concept of what you were asking about, possession.
Hmm.
I think, if we leave our body and it's unattended and it's not protected, another entity could probably try to dwell in there. But then a walk-in would
Return
be,
to you. Yeah.
yeah, a walk-in would be a contract that you made with somebody. So then
Hmm.
you would literally sever yourself from the body, whereas a possession, you would be tethered to that body. And so what happens, I think, is that's why, like in a possession, where the body starts to actually decay, because
Mm.
whatever it was wasn't meant for your body. So you
Yeah.
would see a decay in the physical flesh,
Hmm.
you know.
That would make a lot of sense
Yeah, or the being itself is too powerful for, you know,
because
the
it's draining your energy.
yeah. And it
Hmm.
does, I mean, we're going to get a little off topic here, but
Yeah.
I think that sometimes those possessions could be even uh this is conspiratory theory.
Hmm.
It's that some of these possessions might even be on purpose to where like they will literally kind of like if we were to talk about royalty, like
Hmm.
keeping things in the family, so to speak, without
Yeah.
actually coming right out and saying it,
Hmm.
that certain people are bred on purpose to withhold certain energies. I think it goes along with blood type, physical endurance, and all that. I think that, yeah. Yeah. And I when I say that, it sounds freaking crazy, but progressively the things that I've learned and processed, I can see where that would be possible. That in order to house a certain energy, like say a deity that um, wants to experience this physical plane, that
Hmm.
can't, because, or not even, I don't even know if I would say godlike as much as just a very powerful um,
Being.
being, yeah,
Hmm.
that wants to experience this physical realm. Well, if they can't do it, they can't experience the physical realm because they don't exist in it anymore, then they want to come into the physical, the 3D, then they would have to find a body that could house their energy.
Right. Yep. Hmm.
That's creepy.
It is. I know. Yeah.
But
Great.
yeah,
crazy, creepy,
Yeah,
beautiful world. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Mhm.
well, hi. We have first, I think, Lady Blind Wolf, and then Debbie. I am so thankful. Thank you very much. You came in right at the end because we're getting ready to take off.
Yeah.
But um,
Can rewatch it.
yeah, yeah. I tried to keep it with under an hour this time, and we kind of got off topic a little bit. And I will tell you, there's really no big information in this one. We're just because we're pretty much
Just speaking our
illiterate.
thoughts.
Yeah, trying to translate this what it means. It's yeah. But it was fun, Anna Sarah, and I love
Yeah.
bouncing the stuff off of you. Um,
Mhm.
but when we come back, I'm not sure exactly when that'll be yet, but we'll have Chris with us, and he did have a lot of stuff to say. So
Okay.
I think what we'll do is maybe a recap over book one and book two, and then it might even be a short one, but at least Chris will get a chance to talk what he wants to.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. It was good to see. It was good to be here because I don't really get on too much anymore.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I think that would be fun anyway because he's very invested and he can. I don't know. Chris is the one with most of the knowledge on these books. It's like it makes sense,
Hmm.
and sometimes when I read it, it doesn't make sense until I've done read it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it'll kind of again I get that movie that plays across the screen. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, now.
Hmm.
So oh, and another thing that we're going to end up talking about here in the near future is Tartaria.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that, but I want to get through Enoch. So
Yeah. Sounds
we'll
good.
next one will be a recap, then we'll do book three, and then we'll talk about Tartaria. So we got like 3 episodes coming up that
Woo!
don't want to miss. Woohoo! Yeah. All
Party
right.
time.
Thank you. I'm gonna end this stream, and I hope everybody has a good Sunday. And Anna Sarah, stay where you are.
Yippers.